Thank you, Mr. President. As a servant to the people of Queensland and Australia, I'm here to discuss with the Chamber and the Australian people how we will rebuild our great nation. To the 600,000 people who voted for Pauline Hanson's One Nation, I owe a particular debt of gratitude for the privilege of serving our state and country. I will honour all Australians by restoring our Constitution, restoring our national sovereignty and restoring freedom via this chamber and in my everyday life. All of us, as One Nation senators, are going to say the things that need to be said and do the things that need to be done. We are not worried what the establishment says about us. We're not here for the establishment. We're here for everyday people and our nation. My passion for politics and policy was unleashed during the grassroots uprising of the Australian people against the reviled and dishonest carbon dioxide tax. A new tax on carbon dioxide based on a lie and founded on a dishonest agenda. I became a volunteer spokesman for the Galileo movement, working with great Australians such as Jacques Laxale, Paul Evans, John Smead, Kay Smith, Viv Forbes, Judy Ryan, Anne Easby, Jennifer Marahasi, Ian Plimer, Leon Ashby, Joanne Nova, Jim Simpson, Mike Elliott, Michael Darby, Alan Jones, Grant Goldman, and the late Professor Bob Carter, and many other scientists and grassroots activists against the carbon dioxide tax and for restoring our nation's sovereignty. As a result of climate policies, Queenslanders, everyday Australians, have lost jobs, paid higher taxes, wasted opportunities, lost businesses and frittered away scarce resources. Nowhere is this issue more important than our resource-rich state of Queensland, which stands to lose the most of all states. Does it not concern senators that the hyperbolic predictions from the hysterical likes of Tim Flannery, David Caroli and Ross Garnaut have not come to pass? Again and again and again, for nearly 30 years, climate activists have been warning us that we have just 5 years to act. Every time, nature has proven them wrong. Flannery beclowned himself, saying at the start of this century, Brisbane's dams will never be full again. Aren't we all sick of it? Because the Australian public certainly is. John Cleese said recently, I would like 2016 to be the year when people remembered that science is a method of investigation and not a belief system. But for too long, blind faith, contrary to reality, has ruled. Now, my qualifications include an honours engineering degree covering atmospheric gases, including carbon dioxide, from the University of Queensland. Also, an MBA from the University of Chicago Graduate School of Business, famous for rigorous statistical analysis. In the real world, I obtained statutory qualifications covering atmospheric gases with rigorous responsibilities for hundreds of people's lives. My studies reinforced the importance of empirical facts, hard data and physical observations that are essential and needed to prove cause and effect. My area of studies focused on earth sciences and geology. Australians should be able to rely on the information from Australian government bodies and institutions, but we can't. I have used freedom of information requests, correspondence and reports from the heads of the CSIRO, the Bureau of Meteorology, the UN, universities, to show there is no data proving human use of hydrocarbon fuels affects climate. None. We all use Australia's resources, that is gas, coal and oil, to produce energy. These resources contain hydrogen and carbon that produce water and carbon dioxide, both gases essential for life on Earth and both not a pollutant. Yet the core climate claim is that carbon dioxide from our human activity will one day, someday, catastrophically warm our planet. Now, like Socrates, I love asking questions to get to the truth. So I asked the question, over the last 130 years, what was the longest single temperature trend? Is not the inconvenient truth this, that from the 1930s to the 70s, during the period of the greatest industrialisation in human history, when our carbon dioxide output increased dramatically, atmospheric temperatures cooled for 40 years straight. Another inconvenient fact Temperatures statistically have not been warming since 1995, 21 years. Records show there have been warmer periods in Australia's history than the current decade. Temperatures are now cooler than 130 years ago, and this is the reverse of what we're blatantly told by the Bureau of Meteorology, that has manipulated cooling trends into false warming trends. Mr. President, here are more undeniable facts proven by data. Firstly, changes in the carbon dioxide level are a result of changes in temperature, not a cause. That's the reverse of what we've been told. Second, we do not and cannot affect the level of carbon dioxide in air. That too is the reverse of what we've been told, and that means we cannot and do not affect global climate. Third, warming is beneficial. After all, science classifies past far warmer periods as climate optimums. Again, the reverse of what we're told. It's basic. The sun warms the Earth's surface. The surface, by contact, warms the moving, circulating atmosphere. That means the atmosphere cools the surface. How then can the atmosphere warm it? It can't. That's why their computer models are wrong. The UN's claim is absurd. Instead of science, activists invoke morality, imply natural weather events are unusual, appeal to authority, use name-calling, ridicule and emotion. They avoid discussing facts and rely on pictures of cute, smiling dolphins. These are not evidence of human effect on climate. If it is clear that climate change is a scam and also our prosperity relies on the human endeavours of industry and production, then why is it that in this great parliament there are extremist advocates of an agenda to deindustrialise our nation? Let me make it clear. I will stand firm against any political organisation whose primary aim is to destroy our prosperity and sovereignty. Instead of no nation, we need one nation. How are we, Mr. President, going to rebuild Australia and hold back any push to deindustrialise our nation? In touring Queensland and Australia with Senator Hanson, we can see firsthand the damage fraudulent climate change science and policy is doing to communities and families. Deindustrialisation is costing jobs, destroying families, bankrupting businesses and making our nation less competitive against other nations. Queensland's most important industry is mining. I have run mines around the world. It is also vital to Australia. Coal has lifted the whole of humanity out of grinding poverty and propelled us to achievements never thought possible. The wealth created for every Australian has been considerable. While it may be easy to find some rock or a dollar, to then turn that dollar into $2 is a very intensive and challenging endeavour. Government policy has not always helped this process. In all these matters, I trust the human mind and heart to make intelligent conclusions. I have faith in people and in our ingenuity. We must encourage honest debate and restore free speech on these issues because that respects and promotes human spirit. Humans care. Our future civilization depends on protecting the natural environment. And the future of our natural environment depends on protecting civilization. Mr. President, allow me to say unequivocally, we are taxed enough already. As my dear friend John McCrae publicly says, Australians pay more tax every year than could ever have been imagined by our forefathers crafting our Constitution. Consider this, honourable colleagues, from a chartered accountant who worked on the GST implementation for our Queensland State Government. 50% of the cost of a loaf of bread is made up of tax. That's effectively a tax rate of 100%. Young Australians would be most alarmed to learn that almost 50% of the price of a house is made up of various taxes and impositions. That doubles the price of a typical home loan. Fuel is taxed at the astonishing rate of 230%. Now, we are a decentralised nation and high energy bills compound the cost of everything. When we reduce the cost of energy, though, we increase productivity, which increases our prosperity. High energy costs really hurt the most vulnerable in our society, the lowest income earners. The renewable energy target and climate policies are highly regressive on the poor, and we will work too hard to end such policies. After all, who would have ever thought that governments would create a tax on the very air we breathe, the carbon dioxide tax? And who pays those taxes? The former Deputy Commissioner of the Australian Taxation Office, Jim Kalali, said that 90% of Australia's large companies are foreign-owned and since 1953 have paid little or no company tax. Former Australian Treasurer Joe Hockey said that Australians pay 50% of our income in taxes. The Australian Bureau of Statistics previously stated that Australians on an average income pay 68% of their earnings to government, as taxes, rates, levies, charges, fees, special charges and other burdens. We work Monday to mid-morning Thursday for the government. The biggest purchase of our life is not our home, it's government. For too long, in Australia, we have been strangling the goose that laid the golden egg. It must stop. Economics is about people. Australian economist, lawyer, writer and bush poet Banjo Paterson said in 1889, "It must always be remembered that we are dealing here with the simple question whether we can, by any means, be enabled to make a better living." Australia's tax system quashes Banjo's vision. Instead of no nation, we must have one nation. When our Constitution devolves many powers and responsibilities to our states, why would a central government crave collecting so much tax? It is for nothing more than stealing control over our states, and in doing so, creates a mammoth bureaucracy that duplicates responsibilities and doubles costs for taxpayers. The challenges of tax and productivity are important to Queenslanders, and I will seek to work in collaboration with the entire parliamentary community in pursuing comprehensive tax reform. Senators, in my view, the purpose of great institutions such as this Parliament and broadly politics is to protect life, protect property and protect freedom. Government has sadly transitioned, though, into a beast that only wishes to control people's lives. And it has very curious bedfellows. As my good colleague, Senator Rod Cullerton, has so ably shown, big government, in partnership with big banks, is a disaster for ordinary Australians. One of the greatest threats to our liberty and life as we know it is the international banking sector. As American President Andrew Jackson once said, "It is to be regretted that the rich and powerful too often bend the axe of government to their own selfish purposes." Worldwide, privately owned central banks have greed as their creed and cannot be trusted to work in a country's best interests. A royal commission into the banking sector and currency is just one tool needed to expose what the big international banks are doing to trash our country. In 1889, Banjo Paterson identified the core problem very simply when he referred to international banking as the trusts and monopolies whereby labourers are robbed. Australia again needs a People's Bank, like the Labor Prime Minister Andrew Fisher's Commonwealth Bank started in 1912. A People's Bank is an established policy of our party, a People's Bank that focuses on building infrastructure and securing capital for Australia's needs. This People's Bank will boost productivity and shield the country from the manipulation of our economy so often exerted by the tight-knit international banking sector. Unlocking the potential of Northern Australia and regional Queensland is a most pressing issue facing our state and the broader Australian community. A People's Bank would open new opportunities to make these areas the driver of our economy, with better infrastructure bringing investment and capital to the regions. We need to encourage business to move our operations north and focus on our huge potential. Instead of no nation, we must have one nation. We recently received an excellent presentation from the Immigration Minister, Peter Dutton's team. Their core policies are protecting our borders, are saving thousands of boat people's lives, and are enabling thousands of genuine humanitarian refugees thanks to Senator Hanson's courageous policies 20 years ago. Australians everywhere have told me and my colleagues, including Senator Burston, how important it is that our nation's values and culture are protected. People allowed into our country, Australia, must live by our laws. Growing up, my parents taught me to respect all cultures and religions. I lived with people of all faiths: Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, Sikhs and Christians. Australia has developed a society where people of all faiths are free to get along. In particular, we must maintain our well-developed standards on the treatment of women and girls and children in general, and the equal advancement of people from all ancestries and all colours of skin. We should welcome anyone of any background who wants to live in peace. But for those who don't plan to integrate into our culture and laws, we need to protect our borders and keep them out. My hope is that we will have a fairer immigration system, a system that stringently tests individuals in their commitment to Australian values. At the moment, we test people wishing to take citizenship on Don Bradman's batting average. So I ask the question, why don't we test people more properly before they come to Australia on upholding our great nation and our laws? Australia's values and way of life are also at risk from insidious institutions such as the unelected swill, that is the United Nations. The people of Great Britain, United Kingdom, recently spoke, and I have great admiration for the way they broke free of that socialist, monolithic monster, the European Union. The EU is a template for total socialist domination of Europe through unelected bodies such as the IMF, forcing their frightening agenda on the people. It is also the UN's template, and Australia must leave the UN. We need an Oz exit. Thanks to many researchers like my colleague Graham Williamson and Graham Strachan, people are waking to the UN destroying our national sovereignty through implementation of the UN's 1975 Lima Declaration and 1992 Rio Declaration for 21st Century Global Governance, often known as Agenda 21, more recently as Agenda 2030, signed quietly by the then government and sneakily implemented by ministers of every government since. Under the guise of biodiversity to steal property rights, sustainability to pass regulations controlling people, and climate change to push foreign control using unlawful agreements like the Paris Sham. Let me say, the people of Australia are desperate to regain our sovereignty. We need to rebuild our nation. Australians have had enough of foreign control, enough tax, enough theft of our prosperity and future. Australia is on a precipice. We can fall off the edge if we continue to become an unproductive nation, which hinders enterprise through high taxes and gross abuses of power, such as taxing the air we breathe. We once thought we were a poor nation when we were actually rich. Sadly, we now think we're a rich nation, yet we are becoming poor. Instead of no nation, we must have one nation. People can be confident that I will advocate for them authentically from my heart, always in the national interest. I will show the highest ethical standards in my advocacy. My greatest passion is freeing people to reach their potential through strong leadership, to be individuals able to pursue dreams and aspirations as citizens of the greatest nation on earth, the greatest nation on our precious, beautiful little planet. Together, we have a lot of work to do, Australia, and I'm humbled to be entrusted in doing this amazing work with the Australian people. Finally, no one can show testimony to my belief in the enduring power of human nature more than the great Pauline Hanson. With the indulgence of this chamber and with the Senator's permission, I'll refer to her as everyone knows, Pauline. Our Pauline, the people's politician. She is one of us, and we are just like her. She's a woman of great courage to whom I owe being able to stand here today. Pauline listens to understand and is honest, courageous and persistent. 20 years ago, Pauline, the establishment ridiculed you. At the same time, they quietly started implementing some of your policies. Thank you for saying what you have said and giving a voice to the forgotten people and showing that we really do matter. Thank you, Pauline. I must thank the amazing James Ashby. As with Pauline, they threw everything at you, mate, and you stayed strong and true to our cause, and you kept your integrity. You are one of the most capable people I have ever met anywhere. Thank you, mate. You have a great team at One Nation behind you, Pauline, and I thank all of our campaign team, in particular Soraya Berrick, for your brave and loyal spirit. Thank you, Soraya. I have been working voluntarily on these causes close to my heart for 8 years to shed light on so many injustices. I couldn't have done this without the strength, the courage, the honesty, the tolerance, and sometimes the overwhelming patience, and certainly the care of the person I love most, my gorgeous wife, Christine. Together, we are blessed with the love of our children, Shane and Kelsey, who have the strength to challenge and who are always close to my heart. I love you both. My parents, who have passed on, instilled in me honesty and strength of character, and I honour them today. Our nation, Australia, is at its very best when it is united as one nation. In the past, our nation faced and overcame great challenges. Now, we face enormous challenges. So today, I have shown those things important to me, to our great party, Pauline Hanson's One Nation, and to our magnificent state of Queensland. My role in this chamber will be to ask the questions that need to be asked and to do what needs to be done in finding solutions for all of us. Mr. President and Senators, thank you.